my weekend was I told you off air, but you were recording when I recapped. I went to a concert this weekend, the most ridiculous concert I've ever been to. It was Snoop Dogg, the Game, Exhibit, Warren G, like every West Coast rapper from like 25 years ago. And it was I planned on I could have done an hour and a half on just that concert in this podcast, but it got outweighed last night. Something happened last night. Now, we recorded my little concert recap. I want you to put it at the end.
I will.
Just as a bonus Easter egg. Throw it at the end of the episode. So if you want to hear what Exhibit is doing in 2019, stick around. Jeff's going to throw that at the end. So last night, I was Uber driving, right? And I was in Beverly Hills, and I got a ride request from a gentleman named Kyle, who had a bad Uber rating. To the point where I normally probably would have skipped him. But it's Monday night, it's not very busy, and I need to make money, right? I'm going away with the family this weekend, so I needed to make some cash. So I pick up Kyle, and he gets in the back seat, and he was very friendly. He was very talkative. He had this weird, like, low, mumbly voice, so I couldn't quite understand some of the stuff he was saying. But he seemed like a good dude. We were talking about different things, and then he says, he goes, just so you know, we're making 2 stops tonight. The first one is I'm picking up a date. And then the second one, we're going to an Italian restaurant in Brentwood. And I was like, okay, cool. He's like, dude, wait till you see this chick. He's like, I don't know how I landed this chick, man. She fucking speaks 4 languages. I could barely speak English. He was cracking on himself. I'm like, oh, this guy's fun, right? So I'm like, do me a favor, just throw both destinations in the app so I know where I'm going. He goes, all right, I'll try to figure it out. He was older. He was probably like mid-50s. And he's sitting back there and like he's fucking with his phone. And he finally gets it to go. And he's like, I think I got it. So I looked and I was like, yeah, dude, you nailed it. And he was like, nailed it. Yeah. He's like, Nails, that used to be a baseball player. You remember him? And I was like, you mean fucking Lenny Dykstra? I was like, yeah, of course. I was like, dude, I'm from fucking Philly. That 1993 Phillies team was like the first team I fell in love with. And the dude was like, no shit, you're from Philly? And I was wearing just randomly my Bryce Harper like jersey. So I was like, yeah, fucking look, man. And he's like, oh, fucking Bryce Harper. So we start talking about the Phillies. And I was like, yeah, dude, that 93 team was incredible. He's like, yeah, fucking Dykstra was like an animal. I'm like, dude, he had like 140 walks that season or 140 runs scored that season. It was ridiculous. And this guy's like, dude, you really know your shit. How do you know? I'm like, I'm a baseball nerd. I remember he came in second in the MVP voting to Bonds. And the guy was like, did you know? He's like, you might get a kick out of this. He set the record that season for the most plate appearances ever by a left-handed hitter. I'm like, yeah, and he posted like a 420 on base percentage while he was doing it. I was like, he was a fucking animal. And the guy's like, yeah, but he was all like roided up that season. And I'm like, yeah, but they all were. He's like, yeah, you know, they all were. And I'm like, you know, and then he went to the playoffs. I was like, I remember I think it was game 4 of the World Series. And the guy interjects, he goes, he hit 2 home runs. I'm like, yeah, but they lost 15-14. And the guy's like, yeah. And then they went to Toronto and he hit one in game 6. But then I was like, but then Mitch Williams gave up the home run. I was like, yeah, dude, Dykstra was so fucking good. It's a shame he turned into like such a fucking dickhead now. And he's like, is he? And I was like, yeah, dude, he's like always like he's in jail and all sorts of like crazy shit. And he was like, I don't know how much of that is true. Have you like read his book? I'm like, no, I haven't read his book. The guy's a fucking asshole. Why am I going to read his book? And the guy laughs and he's like, yeah, hell of a ball player though. And I'm like, yeah. So we start talking more and more about the 93 Phillies. And I'm like, we're running down the roster. We're doing that thing where we're going, remember John Kruk? Remember Darren Dalton? And I'm just having a blast with this fucking guy, right? So finally, we pull up to this woman's house. And we're sitting in the car outside, and he goes, I told her that we were going to be here. I thought she'd be outside by now. He's like, what's the deal? What do I do? Do I have to like walk up to the door, or do I just wait in the car? I was like, dude, I'm married. I haven't had like a first date in like 10 years. So I was like, I don't know how it works anymore, but I would say walk up to the door. Like, I'll wait here. And he was like, nah, I'm just going to stay in the car. So I was like, all right, that's another way to do it. So this woman comes walking out to the car, and the first thing I noticed is that she is so far out of this guy's league. She's fucking gorgeous. She's in like her mid 20s, maybe. And I don't know if she was black or Latina or like some combination, but just gorgeous, right? So she gets in, and like Kyle is like sort of nudging me a little bit, like, and I'm like, all right, Kyle, way to go, bud. Because Kyle seems like he doesn't really have his shit together, to be honest. He's just a big baseball dude like me, but he doesn't have his shit together. So she gets in the backseat, and we start driving to the restaurant, and they start making some small talk, and it is painful. Like, they are not connecting at all. And he says to her at one point, he's like, yeah, so we're going to Brentwood. Do you know about Brentwood? And the woman's like, yeah, a little. And he's like, you remember OJ? And I'm in the front. Like, dude, she wasn't born when OJ was doing his thing. And she goes, yeah, OJ. He's like, yeah, Brentwood. That's where the juice was loose. And I'm thinking, like, what a colorful way to describe a double murder. So then he starts talking to me about Ron Goldman. He just gives up on talking to her. It's just not. They're not connecting, right?
Yeah.
So he starts talking to me more about the Phillies. He's like, oh, who was the center fielder last year? I'm like, oh, it was McCutchen and Kingery. And we're just talking, right? So we get to Brentwood. I go to drop him off. The woman gets out of the car. And he goes, man, this was a great ride. I'm like, dude, the pleasure was mine. I fucking love talking baseball. Like, this was really, really cool. And he puts his hand up for a handshake. And that's always awkward because I'm facing in the other direction. So I, like, reach back and give him, like, this weak-ass handshake. And he goes, you're the real deal, man. He's like, you're the real deal. I like your style. And I was like, oh, thanks, dude. Yeah, this was fun. He's like, those 93 Phillies, man, never forget. And I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. And then he was mumbling. So I thought he said, man, I love Lenny Dykstra. And I was like, yeah, me too. He's great. And he was like, no. And he leans up and he goes, I'm Lenny Dykstra.
No fucking way.
I turn around and Lenny Dykstra is sitting in the backseat of my goddamn Prius. And I just go, holy shit, dude. And he gives me a fist bump and he goes, I like your style, man. You're the real deal. And all I could think, like, in my mind, the immediate thing that I went to, and I told that story a little bit out of order, I went to the very first thing that I said about Lenny Dykstra. Before I got into any of those stats, the first thing I said was, yeah, it's a shame he's such a fucking dickhead now. And the guy's like, I don't know about that. I'm like, no, he's an asshole. I called Lenny Dykstra a dickhead and an asshole unknowingly, which everything I've ever heard about Lenny Dykstra leads me to believe that he would have slit my throat while I was driving. So all I could think in that moment, he was getting out of the car, and I was just like, dude, fucking thank you for 1993. And he just said something like, yeah, don't mention it. Have a good night. And I was like, yeah, man, have a great night. And it was fucking wild.
That is fucking incredible.
Dude, insane. And to the point where, like, I couldn't believe it. I wanted to call all my friends, but it was like late on the West Coast, so everybody else was asleep, everybody who would care. And I'm just like, you got to be fucking kidding me. Like, and when I tell that story, I realize when you go back, if you go back and re-listen to this story, it's going to be like Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense. You're going to be like, I should have known it was Lenny Dykstra the whole
time. I mean, I have so many fucking questions. Like, everything about the story is so perfect that I can't really get over it. Number one, that he's under Kyle as an Uber name. That's the first thing that I could talk about for the rest of the entire episode. Number two, that even though he's hiding being Lenny Dykstra, because nobody would ever pick up Lenny Dykstra in a ride-sharing service, even though he's Lenny Dykstra, people keep picking him up, and in his fake name of Kyle, he's still a prick enough to have a bad Uber rating.
Well, he's very talkative, and I can imagine if you're not a fan of the 93 Phillies or the 86 Mets, you don't have much to talk to Lenny Dykstra about. Unless you want to talk about his upcoming boxing match against the Bagel Boss. Like, what else are you going to talk about?
Oh, my God. And then, the best part of the entire story is that you got to talk baseball with Lenny Dykstra while still having called him the piece of shit that he is.
Yeah. And we talked baseball for like 25 minutes. And I think he was so impressed because every one of the stats I named, I double checked on Baseball Reference after. I said he had 140 runs scored. He had 143. I was off by 3. I said he had a 420 on base percentage. It was 420 on the dot. I said that game was 15 to 14. It was 15 to 14 on the dot. I remembered everything to the point where Lenny fucking Dykstra was like, you are the fucking man for knowing all this baseball nerd shit.
Oh my God. I'm not going to lie. About 3/4 of the way through, I started going, is Pat talking to Lenny fucking Dykstra in this ride right now? I can't.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And I never even.
I told a friend today who knew immediately.
Really?
That it was Lenny Dykstra. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
dude, I wasn't sure. The only reason I even started to like think that in any sort of way is because you had already told me the rap story or the rap concert story that I will put at the end of the pod. And I was like, if it's going to be a story that tops what I've just heard,
right.
This must be incredible. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. I mean, I don't even know how the fuck we do the episode now, but let go, man.
My favorite part of the story was when we were discussing the monster season in 1993. He's the one who offered up, yeah, but he was roided up that season. And I had to be like, dude, everybody was doing it. And he was yeah, fucking everybody was doing it.
I forgot about that.
He went so far undercover to play this role. It was outstanding.
I'm just, I don't know. I can't even. I'm fascinated.
Another little highlight of it. At one point before we picked up the date, he was asking me just about the World Series. He's like, "Hey, who do you like in the World Series?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got to go Houston." I was like, they both have great starting pitching. They both have really formidable lineups. I was like, but the Nationals have the highest bullpen ERA of any team in playoff history. It's going to catch up with them at some point. They can't sustain this. I'm going to go with the Astros. 3 hours after that conversation, he posted a video on Twitter where he's like, hey, everybody, Lenny Dykstra coming at you live from Beverly Hills, California with my World Series prediction. I'm picking the Astros in 6 because the Nationals have a bad bullpen and there's no way it's going to hold up through the whole series. I'm like, you son of a bitch, Lenny Dykstra. You stole my take.
What a fucking slime ball.
Bad Nationals bullpen is not exclusive to me. That's pretty standard. But
dude, that is an all-timer. That is an all-timer. You might have just made that the best. Like, regardless of what happens for the next 45 minutes, that right there is like, that's just fucking insane.
Every piece of it. Lenny Dykstra is the ultimate person for that story. Because if
nobody would have been better.
If I had like Mickey Morandini or some other guy from the 93 team in my car, who cares? But Lenny Dykstra is like a punchline. And I have to say, he was a really good dude to me. Maybe it's because I know baseball.
Well, maybe it's because clearly the reason he has a shitty Uber rating is because he's sexually harassing all the female Uber drivers he has.
Oh, that could be too. Yeah. He did not hit on me. He made no advances, Lenny Dykstra. To be fair, he was in the backseat with a woman half his age, so hitting on me would seem counterproductive.
Oh my God. I just can't even. Wow. This is.
Yeah, dude.
That is awesome.
Wild. So yeah, when that happened, I was like, fuck getting rear-ended in a parking lot. Fuck the Snoop Dogg concert. Like, this is what we're talking about.
That just changed my whole day around. So thank you.